David West stooped so low as to call the police to try to have me removed from a council meeting just to keep the story out of the public.
I heard about this. This is preposterous. He called the police on you during a council meeting?
Yes. During my 5-minute allotted speaking time, I was trying to give my story. And he said, that's irrelevant. And he kept interrupting me. And he ordered my microphone turned off. And he stooped so low as to call the police. And when the police showed up, you know what they asked me, David?
Tell me.
Why are we here? And I looked, I said, you're asking me why you're here? What were you told? He said, I don't know. They were told that you were trespassing. I said, what? Trespassing? I'm an elected official. I'm in a council chambers. I'm in my office at City Hall. I'm trying to do my job.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Richmond Hill, Ontario. And folks, you know, I think when it comes to those who support the Green movement, you'd be very much in favor of a program that would replace green bins and blue boxes for free. I mean, it's all about the 3 R's, right? Reduce, recycle, reuse. But not so here in Richmond Hill. You see, Carmine Perrelli, he's a councillor in Richmond Hill, and he's now running for mayor of Richmond Hill. He introduced exactly such a program, and now he is facing council made a ruling that they want Mr. Perrelli to pay some $140,000 for the blue box and green bin giveaway that he coordinated. And the question arises, why? Well, my personal theory is most on council lean left, and I also truly believe they are supportive of such an environmental program. Alas, Mr. Perrelli leans right. So it's not about the merits of the program, it is perhaps about the person who coordinated the program. Carmine, I think this is just unbelievable that council ruled against you on an environmental initiative. One would think they would be fully supportive of. What is going on behind the scenes here?
Well, David, this program that I initiated was an Enviro Day event. Mm-hmm. And the purpose was that during the pandemic, City Hall was closed and the city was unable to replace broken and destroyed green and blue bins. And I support the environment. And so I put together a program whereby you could come very safely during the pandemic, outdoors. People didn't have to leave their cars, and I replaced over 7,000 bins that the city was unable to do. David West, the current mayor, who claims to be a supporter of the environment, did everything he possibly could in order to stop my event from going forward.
And by the way, when Mr. Perrelli says Mayor West claims to be a proponent of environmental stewardship, we have video evidence to the contrary. You might remember Mayor West, when he was a councillor a few years ago, he was supporting an initiative to ban single-use plastics in Richmond Hill. We caught David West, Councillor West at the time, on a lunch break. Ooh, check out this. Hi, I'm just here to interview Carmine Perrelli and some other councillors, but it's about the O Canada issue.
No, right now I'm having my lunch.
But
you
just a very quick question. You voted against O Canada originally. So there you go, Carmine. We've talked about this before. One rule for thee, one rule for me. It's a double standard. It's hypocrisy. But tell me, at the end of the day, I would imagine a lefty on council would support blue boxes. They would support green bins. Is this really all about a political vendetta?
It is. It's exactly that, David. It has nothing to do anymore with the environment. David West wants to keep the narrative out there that they've created this false narrative that I owe the city $140,000 for those green and blue bins. When, David, as you know, the city solicitors and external legal counsel have already told David West and other members of council to abandon this false narrative and tell the truth and not go to court, because they will lose and they will be found that having acted illegally and in bad faith. And that translates, David, to keep this dirty little secret He doesn't want it to come out before the election. He wants to keep the narrative out there. And he doesn't care how much it's going to cost you and I, the taxpayers, to go to court to defend something that's unwinnable.
And Mayor West is ignoring the advice of the city's own lawyers.
Not just the city lawyers. They hired external lawyers, a professional third-party law firm. 2 lawyers presented to them and told them that you can't win this, that you will be found to have acted illegally and in bad faith, and abandon it because you're costing the taxpayers, hundreds of thousands of dollars is going to cost the taxpayers.
Told me off camera, Carmine, that you're very limited what you can say about this, but I am going to analyze that document and highlight the more, interesting points. And it seems like the city's upside down right now. You're being, I think, unfairly vilified. Meanwhile, we have a councillor, the Ward 5 Khaleesi, Karen Syphilis, who was found guilty of fraud. She defrauded the city. She defrauded a former staffer. She got a slap on the wrist, and is now back in council with her fraudulent hands in the taxpayer piggy bank, making decisions. This is madness, Carmine.
It's absolute madness. But what makes it worse is that, when you have members of council and your current mayor hiding the truth from the taxpayers and using taxpayer money to defend their dirty little secret just so they can get a competitive advantage in the mayoral election, that's unconscionable.
Carmine, I am, of course, duty-bound to reach out to Mayor West. I want to get his side of the story. What do you think, and I'm not confident he will give me an interview, but what do you think he would say publicly about this decision to ignore legal opinions that this is a hopeless case for the city, yet they're trudging through with it? How do you think he would justify his behavior?
Well, it's actually worse than that. So the first thing that we have to recognize is that you got this information from a source that should not have leaked out of an in-camera meeting. So how you got that is an interesting question. Number 2, just to put it in perspective, David, on February 14th, in order to keep this dirty secret from getting on the agenda, David West stooped so low as to call the police to try to have me removed from a council meeting just to keep the story out of the public.
I heard about this. This is preposterous. He called the police on you during a council meeting?
Yes. During my 5-minute allotted speaking time, I was trying to give my story. And he said, that's irrelevant. And he kept interrupting me. And he ordered my microphone turned off. And he stooped so low as to call the police. And when the police showed up, you know what they asked me, David?
Tell me.
Why are we here? And I looked, I said, you're asking me why you're here? What were you told? He said, I don't know. They were told that you were trespassing. I said, what? Trespassing? I'm an elected official. I'm in a council chambers. I'm in my office at City Hall. I'm trying to do my job. How am I trespassing? He goes, we don't know, but we're going to leave now. I offered them an espresso and a biscotti, and off they went. If I don't watch the pennies at City Hall, my taxpayers, my residents are going to be hurting. I don't want them to have to choose, David, between paying their property taxes and putting food in their children's mouths. It's not going to happen, David. Not on my watch. And I don't care how big the Goliath is. I'm not David, you are. But I'm like David.
In name only. Carmine, thank you so much for your time. There you have it, folks. On October 24th, Ontario municipalities, people living in Ontario municipalities, that is, are going to the polls. Typically, the turnout will be subpar. And it's shocking. I don't understand the lack of engagement in a municipal election. The municipal government is the one that affects you most directly. They're fixing the roads, they're plowing the snow, they're in charge of the waterworks, and so on. I think you have to get engaged. And also this year, given what we're seeing in Oakville, a lot of people don't even care at all who the school trustees are. Maybe you want to ask the people vying for that job if they are okay with, basically perversity that is happening in some of our schools. You've got to pay attention, you've got to do your research, and you've got to make an informed decision because it's affecting you and your children directly. For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzies. Well, folks, I recently had this legal document anonymously dropped on my porch, and it's a whopper. You see, it is proof indicating that the narrative that Perrelli owes the city $140,000 for the blue box and green bin replacement program is bogus. We know this is a false narrative because the city of Richmond Hill hired an expert external law firm to provide counsel with an opinion on the validity and lawfulness of that bylaw. And here are 3 key conclusions. 1, quote, in our view, the city simply does not have the legal authority to enact the bylaw, end quote. 2, quote, as a result, we think it is almost certain that a court will quash the October 2021 resolution and bylaw. They will also likely conclude that the resolution and bylaw were passed in bad faith, end quote. And 3, quote, if the October bylaw is not repealed, the city will incur unnecessary costs litigating this aspect of the application. The cost will be substantial considering the broad factual allegations. Further, when the October bylaw is quashed, a court will award Councillor Perrelli with his legal costs, possibly on a substantial indemnity basis. Thus, given the unlikelihood of success, we do not recommend litigating this issue, end quote. And yet, folks, Mayor West is desperate to keep this legal opinion secret until after the election. He wants this false narrative to hang over Mr. Perrelli's head during the election campaign. And Mayor West has no issue whatsoever with the fact that Richmond Hill taxpayers will potentially be on the hook for millions of dollars in legal fees. That's because it would seem to be that for Mayor West, the ends, i.e. getting reelected, justify the means. This is certainly immoral and unethical, and it might even be illegal. By the way, we reached out to Mayor West via email and phone. He has yet to respond. Well, folks, we here at Rebel News, we try to bring you the other side of the story that the mainstream media just won't tell. If you can help us fund our journalism, that would be greatly appreciated. Please go to rebelinvestigates.com. That's rebelinvestigates.com. And if you can kick in $1 or $3, that would be greatly appreciated.